Chapter 10. One People. Having departed the city of Tug after liberating it from the clutches of the false god Mammon, Enkidu and his young companions, Tarvan, son of the town baker Tanin, and Lanlim, daughter of the late stable owner Bashan, begin their journey home. How they originally departed as two. Enkidu and Tarvan now return to Kataltakuk with a caravan of nearly 250 in tow. Lanlim was among the young riders selected to petition aid from the neighboring communities during the Sakari siege of Kataltakuk. When only Ephron and Sepre returned, Lanlim and all the other riders were presumed dead. Enkidu was able to save Lanlim from execution in Tug, but the girl had suffered weeks of torture and assault. The creature known as Mammon had the city of Tug completely under its control. Unknown to be an Aesir or something else entirely, the creature known as Mammon was able to manipulate the people of Tug into practices of human sacrifice and other forms of unnecessary brutality, created to assist with the cultivation and progression of mortal life forms. The majority of the Aesir were overcome with greed, pride, and lust, believing themselves to actually be gods themselves. The more humanity worshipped the Aesir, the stronger they became. It was to cull this dangerous arrogance that the Vanner of the 11th Choir were put together as a tactical unit. The Grigori Zyle of Lake Arpa was once a member of this elite group of warrior Yazata, later tasked with wiping out the Nephilim and their sires for similar reasons. With the death of Mammon and the toppling of his religion, Tug was freed from evil and given a rare chance to turn towards light. Enkidu was persuaded by Tarvan and Lanlim to not judge the people of Tug too harshly and forgive them for their following Mammon down a path of wickedness. The survivors of Tug now joined the trio from Kataltakuk, back towards the city with the faint hope of rebuilding it to its former glory. Wrought by fires and other devastation due to fierce war with the Sakari invaders, Kataltakuk is in poor shape. Few of the buildings remain erect, with most being just rubble or burnt ruins. It will take many days to return to Kataltakuk, as the larger procession slows down the group's progress. A caravan can only move forward as fast as its slowest wagons and riders. The marshes of Golgotha are perilous. The terrain is still flooded in many areas, and rushing waters have completely overtaken paths, as diverted and dammed rivers have been opened back up to flow freely once more. This has created many washout conditions that could easily lead to the entire caravan being swept away and killed. In addition to the waters, deep mud makes other areas completely impassable. Large snakes and deadly crocodiles prowl near the pitch-black waters, ready to drag unsuspecting prey to their deaths. While in the deeper waters, behemoth hippopotamus, with equally large tempers, are ready to rampage without warning. Blood-sucking leeches and other parasitic creatures add to the danger, as they are smaller and easier to miss when one is so concerned with avoiding the 18 to 20-foot crocodiles and 20 to 30-foot pythons. Even the aquatic plants around Golgotha are dangerous. Many varieties of carnivorous pitcher and sticky trap plants have evolved to survive in the nutrient-poor soils of the muddy banks. When a plant cannot get its nutrients conventionally, it is possible for them to turn towards the consumption of meat. The waters of Arpa may be loosed, but the terrain is still flooded and dangerous, Tarvan says. We will need another way around the lake. He points to the wagons and carts filled with supplies brought with them from Tug by the villagers. They will never make it through the mud of the marshlands. If we go around Arpa to the north, it shall add at least another day's journey, maybe more, Enkidu says. I think that would be preferable over the carts becoming stuck in the mud, and us being forced to abandon them and their contents. Enkidu nods. This is a dilemma. I suppose we have no other choice. Relay to the caravan that we are going the long way around the lake. I shall scout ahead. Just as Enkidu turns to walk away, he catches sight of Tarvin in his peripheral. The young man is headed blindly towards a danger he is completely ignorant of. "Watch out!" Enkidu warns Tarvin as the young man nearly walks into the bright red tendrils of a stretched-out carnivorous plant. "If one of those bulbs touches your skin, you will not be able to pry it off. The plant will begin secreting enzymes that will turn your flesh into liquid that it can feed upon." Tarvin shudders in horror. "Damn this disgusting swamp of nightmares. I just want to get through here as quickly as possible." "We cannot rush," Enkidu cautions. "If we try to move too fast, we will be more susceptible to becoming victims of the perils here." A large mosquito-like insect lands on Tarvin's arm and he motions to smash it, but is stopped by Enkidu. "No!" he shouts. "Do not move or breathe." "What?" Tarvin whispers. "What are you talking about?" The insect suddenly plunges a syringe-like mouthpart deep into the young man's arm and directly into his vein. "Shit!" Enkidu curses, lunging forward to grab the insect. Enkidu crushes the parasite in his hand and pulls its mouthpart from Tarvin's arm with care. Tarvin becomes lightheaded, and his complexion pales. The young man stumbles, catching himself with one hand against the nearest wagon. In just a few seconds, he is already sweating heavily and worsening. "What happened to him?" Lianlim asks, running over to them. "He was stung by a bargasham," Enkidu says. "The venom it injects will leave his body numb, give him terrible violent fits and a fever. If we are not careful, he may die." "Die?" Lianlim whispers. "You cannot be serious." Enkidu nods. "The ecosystem of these swamps are not friendly towards humans at all. Everything here wants to kill us and eat us. We do not have long before the venom reaches his heart. Help me restrain him in one of these wagons." "But," Lianlim is confused and frightened. "We do not have the time," Enkidu shouts. "Just do as I say or he is going to die." They bring Tarvin into one of the wagons, and Enkidu ties the young man down so that he cannot move freely. As the pain from the sting increases, Tarvin's body may convulse and thrash involuntarily. "Pitsuruki Runake," Enkidu shouts. "Do you know what it looks like?" Lianlim shakes her head, trying her best not to be overcome by the situation. She considers Tarvin a friend and does not want him to die. I don't know what that is." Enkidu crouches, drawing a 5-leafed plant in the mud. "It is a plant that grows on vines around the bases of the Labani tree. The leaves are highly absorbent of poisons, and will soak the toxins up if we are quick about it," he says, speaking of a rare vine that grows in tandem with a variety of Afro-Asian oak trees. "I know that plant well," a woman speaks up. "I grew up in a forested area not too far from Arpa. My mother taught me all of the local medicinal herbs and roots." Enkidu nods. "Please, go help Lianlim find some. I will attempt to drain as much venom as I can, but the wound will need to be filled with pitsuruki leaves to soak up the remainder." The woman, named Yarlagab, leads Lianlim off the path and into the denser forest still flooded by the damming of Arpa and its subsequent rerouting of the local streams and rivers. The muddy water is nearly waist deep, and Lianlim is terrified of what lurks out of her sight. "We are going to be eaten by crocodiles," Lianlim mutters nervously. "If we are lucky," Yarlagab replies. "That would be one of the faster ways to die out here." "That is not very reassuring," Lianlim complains. "Tarvin, are you and he—" Lianlim's eyes widen in shock. "What? No, absolutely not. We just grew up together. There is nothing like that between us." "He seems like a good man," Yarlagab says. "Like you, he showed compassion towards us, even after all that our city did to hurt you both." "Tarvin is a fool," Lianlim laughs near tears. She tries not to think about how she would feel if he were to die. "He does not consider any of the consequences of his actions. He just follows his emotions." "That does not sound like that bad of a trait, really." He is not a solid foundation, Lianlim says. His convictions are not strong. He can be influenced too easily. She thinks of several times that she had to step in order to keep Tarvin out of trouble, and smiles. He is easily led astray, especially by pretty girls. Yarlagab raises an eyebrow. Jealousy? Lianlim shakes her head. No, like I said, it is nothing like that. If anything, Tarvin is like a stupid little brother that is always messing up and getting into trouble, but you still love them. There, Yarlagab says, pointing to a higher elevated patch of forest. I see some Labani trees growing on that rise. We should be able to also find the Pitsaruki vine around there. They crawl out of the muddy water and onto the embankment of the island-like patch of forest. Once Lake Arpa's overflow settles and the waters subside, much of this flooded region will return to dry woodlands, and the size of the marshlands will shrink substantially towards the southeast. Oh, we are very lucky, Yarlagab says, digging up a small yellow flower and breaking off its roots. This is an Ionforberry flower. The roots can be chewed on as a painkiller and sedative. This should help Tarvin's body recover after the poison is all removed from his blood. Is this the vine? Lianlim asks, pointing to a waxy five-leafed plant wrapped around one of the oak trees. Yarlagab nods, pocketing several more Ionforberry roots into her clothing before hurrying over to Lianlim. Be careful not to damage any of the leaves when you pick them. They must be fully intact, and not distressed or broken to begin absorbing the toxins from Tarvin's blood. The two women gather what they can before returning to the caravan. Lianlim stands outside the wagon, pulling thick black leeches from her body, while Yarlagab helps Enkidu to pack Tarvin's wound with Pitsaruki leaves. Once the venom is absorbed, the leaves turn a reddish-brown color, and they are swapped out with fresh ones, until the leaves remain green. Tarvin is left to rest, after being given Ionforberry roots to chew on by Yarlagab. We are in your debt, Enkidu says. I could not have saved him on my own. If this had happened with just the two of us out here, he likely would not have survived. You took an awful big risk, trusting us after all the horrible things our city did, Yarlagab says. We owe all three of you our lifelong gratitude. Consider whatever debt you feel that you owe to be now fully paid, Enkidu says. You risked your life in the swamp to save Tarvin. You did not have to do that. We must all work together as one people to make it through the wilderness alive, Yarlagab says. I do not see us as citizens of Tug anymore. Whether your city accepts us or not, we can never go back. Tug died with Mammon. We must leave that city behind and never move backwards. Only by moving forward and starting anew can we hope to atone for our sins. Enkidu nods in acceptance. Very well said. I completely agree. He looks over at Lianlim, who is covered in mud from the waist down. Go and wash off. I will stay with Tarvin. He turns to Yarlagab, who is also still caked with mud and swamp water. You too. The stagnant water holds many parasites. It cannot be good for you to keep yourself covered in it. As the women head down to the water, Enkidu looks in on Tarvin. It seems as though the young man is going to pull through. You're fortunate that you have people that care deeply about you. I pray that you do not take this for granted. Tarvin does not hear Enkidu, instead resting soundly. Dozens of amphibious eyes watch the caravan from the murky waters as they advance through the swamps. No one can see the creatures, but they all can feel that they are being watched. Golgotha is full of predators, and to them, the humans are just uncommon prey. Delivering bread to men and women as they work on the continued cleanup and reconstruction of their city, Tannen does his best to keep everyone fed and their morale high, refusing to take any payment for the food. Tannen thinks it is his duty to do all that he can for the restoration efforts. Unknown to the rest of the city, Tannen is aware that his supplies are growing dangerously low. If something isn't done soon, he will be unable to bake any more bread for even his own household. "Thank you," the man says, setting down a large wooden beam to take a piece of bread from Tannen. "I do not know where we would be if you had not survived." "We all contribute however we can," Tannen says. "I lack the physical strength to build like you, so I bake and try to ease the hunger of the city while it works." "And it is much appreciated," the man laughs, smiling. "Anyone can lift wood and set bricks, but your baking skills are nothing short of magical." "And borderline criminal," Captain of the City Guard Baron says, approaching them. The other man eats his bread quickly and returns to his work, trying to avoid a conversation with Baron. The self-appointed captain is not respected or well-liked by hardly anyone in the city. "Baron," Tannen says, faking politeness. Baron glares at the city baker, knowing his courtesy is forced. "You will refer to me as Captain Baron, Elder Tannen." Tannen begins to laugh, greatly angering Baron. "Are you so craving approval that you need us all to indulge your fantasies? I am not your father. You do not need my approval." "Do you want to be arrested?" Baron growls. "I can arrange for that." "On what grounds? Insulting your fragile ego is not a crime. Do not forget that I am still a city elder. Only a handful of us survived the invasion, so I hold a great deal of power in Cook myself, and unlike you, I am well received. Go ahead and try to arrest me. You will not like how it turns out for you, Captain." Baron fumes, balling his fists tightly in anger and shaking visibly. "Enjoy that power while you can. Things are changing around here. I promise that those changes will make you and the other elders obsolete." With that, Baron storms off. Tannen wonders just what Baron was threatening. Could the captain's support among the citizens be growing more than he thought? Tannen decides he will have to watch Baron more carefully for the time being. Several guardsmen run up to notify Tannen that 3 armored men on horseback have arrived at the city gates seeking an audience with their leadership. Baron overhears this news as he is walking away and stops. "Visitors at the gates? You should have notified me first." The guards look back and forth between each other and Tannen, unsure of what to say or do. "They specifically asked for a representative of our city leadership," one man finally speaks up. "They mean me," Tannen says, challenging Baron with a grin. Baron says nothing else, turning with a huff and leaving once more. "That man disrespects the office of Captain of the Guard." "Amastus never appointed him as his successor," one of the guards says, frustrated. "We do not recognize him as our captain." "He stole his title from a dead man," Tannen growls. "A great man at that." "You elders need to correct this before it gets too far out of control," the other guard says. "Baron's greed is only going to cause more problems for Cook's reconstruction." Tannen nods, thinking very carefully on everything said. If Baron's support is not coming from the city guards, where is it originating? The guardsmen lead Tannen to the main gates to greet their visitors. Standing just out the city gates are 3 knights on horseback, clad in light armor, bearing the royal crest of the city of Jericho. The men are members of an official military force, and carry about them an air of nobility themselves. "Greetings, sirs," Tannen says with respect. "I wish we were in a better state to welcome men of your stature, but we are recovering from a terrible attack recently." "We are well aware of your recent troubles," Sisuthros says. The great city of Jericho lent aid to your situation, along with 200 soldiers. Our most esteemed warrior came to you in your time of need. Illimaches, Tannen says with a nod. He was as amazing as you say. In addition to his magnificent prowess in battle, he was an honorable and wise leader. We would not have survived without him. Kinche Lupal looks to his brothers as if to say, I told you so. He addresses Tannen directly. Tell me, did you see how he died? Along with most of our best fighters, Illimaches fell at the hands of the invaders' leadership, a terrible sorceress named Inyana. A sorceress? Kinche Lupal whispers. Her magic was greater than his? Tannen nods. She fought against the best mages I've ever seen all at once, yet she still seemed invincible. It was not until she was betrayed by one of her subordinates that Refugio of Levant was able to finish closing the doorway to their world, and our priest Fausto giving up his life to imprison her. Refugio was here assisting? Sisuthros asks with a bit of distrust. Tannen picks up that there must be some history between the men. Our riders and messenger hawks asked for help from all over the region, Tannen says. Aid came not only from Jericho, but also from Levant and Muria. And yet Jericho paid the greatest price, Sisuthros says angrily. We lost our champion. What did Levant sacrifice? I do not believe that was the point, Tannen whispers, confused. It sounds as if Illimaches died nobly. Kinche Lupal speaks up. We should not taint his memory by questioning his motivation, or who he aligned himself with as comrades in the end. I am still not convinced that he died for a noble cause, Sisuthros says. I will need to spend more time in this city and with its people to decide. You are welcome to stay here as long as you wish, Tannen says. My home is still relatively undamaged. I can put you up with my family as our honored guests. Sisuthros nods, pushing his horse past the guards and into the city proper. I would like to explore the extent of the damage caused by the invaders first. Seeing the scope of their destruction may give me insight into Illimaches' mindset going into the final battle. You are free to come and go wherever you like, Tannen says. Kataltakuk is completely open to you, brave sirs. Outside the rear city gates and the makeshift prisons created by the city guards many years ago, Baron now uses the cavernous area to keep concealed his dark secrets. The self-proclaimed captain of the city guard seethes with rage, pacing back and forth. He cannot believe how he has been continuously disrespected by his own guardsmen. I am captain of the guard! Baron screams, flipping over a table in his rage. Why am I not respected? Because you need proper fear to breed respect, Inazria says. They have not been given enough reason to fear you. Baron stares at the Sakari prisoner with distrust. In his heart, he knows that Inazria will do or say whatever it takes to gain his freedom. He is not foolish enough to believe any loyalty exists between them. Baron plans to use Inazria as much as the Sakari plans to use him. As long as he gets what he wants, nothing else matters. There are alternate routes if you find instilling fear to be unsavory, Inazria says. Such as, an enemy force lurks nearby with malicious intent. I can taste their bloodlust from here. The visitors? Baron asks in surprise. They did not come in peace? I do not sense anything peaceful about this group. They are like cruel animals salivating before a fresh kill. It will not be long before they make their move. I can sense their impatience behind their dark intentions. That trusting fool Tannen, Baron growls. He cannot see beyond their facade. Had I been the one to greet them, I am sure I would have been able to ascertain their motives. And Osria nods. Perhaps you are a much better judge of character than your peers. You spared me when the rest of them would rather have seen my head on a spike. That outcome is not yet off the table, Baron growls. If I determine you are making light of me, I will make sure you do not ever escape Kataltakuk alive. Well, you had best confront your true enemies before they become too familiar with your city and its people. We will continue our discussions after I return, Baron says, grabbing his captain's cloak from the overturned table. And Osria grins. I will be waiting. I look forward to nothing more than our discussions. Liar, Baron growls, leaving the prison. The brothers of Elamaches tour Kataltakuk, speaking with the villagers and inspecting the vast damage caused by the Sakari. It is Suthros' hope that he can gain a better understanding of what was going through Elamach's mind when he decided that the city and its people were worth dying for. Cities are attacked and pillaged all the time, Suthros says. What makes Kataltakuk so special that it survived? Many brave men and women sacrificed their lives to ensure our survival, a villager says. You say all that, but do you believe that? Would you sacrifice your own life to save the city if it came to it? The villager nods firmly. Of course I would. Suthros chuckles. You say that now, but will your conviction hold should another crisis occur? When humans are put under pressure and tested in a life or death situation, their true nature always shows. As Enkidu and his caravan continue their trek through the dangerous Golgotha swamps, the warrior priest constantly looks back and forth across the pathway, searching for threats. Every sound causes the man unease. With so many predatory creatures prowling nearby, they will not be safe until they are out of the swamps completely. You seem extra nervous, a Toog villager named Lepuo says. You must be fully aware of the dangers of this land. Enkidu nods. I have passed this way many times in my journeys. Now that the swamps have flooded, their range has greatly expanded and increased the hunting grounds of the predators that dwell here. We will be safe from the crocodiles and hippos, so long as we stay away from the edge of any water. With all the flooding, that will not be so easy. The path will surely narrow a few more times ahead. Is that not why you are taking us the long way around? Lepuo says. We are avoiding the majority of the swamps by going north. It is. That still only lowers the danger level, not remove it entirely, Enkidu says. There are still many things that want to kill us that can still achieve that goal if we are not careful. Tadalik? Lepuo asks. Maybe, Enkidu says, unsure. They are not known to be so aggressive to attack when they do not have the numbers advantage. With such a large caravan moving through, chances are any Tadalik nearby will be too frightened to attack. They hear screams from the rear of their procession and rush towards the commotion on horseback. Finding one of the food carts toppled over and broken, they see blood and signs of a struggle. Did anyone see what happened? Enkidu asks, his eyes scanning the wilderness for threats. One villager speaks up, shaken to his core with fright. I heard the screams, but by the time I turned to look back, no one was there, and the cart was already smashed. Raiders? Tarvin whispers, weakly peering out of the wagon after being roused by the commotion. They would not attack us in this manner, Enkidu whispers, thinking carefully about the situation. Raiders would have taken the cart with them, not smash it and leave the spoils. Enkidu spots a smooth streak in the mud nearby the bank, leading into the dark waters of the marsh, as if something was dragged in. Who then? Who else could be following us? I do not think we were followed. Rather, I believe we have entered their hunting grounds. There? Tarvin's dread rises. You cannot mean... Enkidu nods. Tadalik. Tarvin's complexion pales with fright. I thought you were just trying to scare me before. They are real? Enkidu again nods. Since they are carnivorous, they left the food cart and instead dragged off the villager that was driving it. It is the most reasonable explanation. I thought you said that Tadalik would not attack a large caravan, Lapuo says. And I seem to have been wrong, Enkidu shrugs. I am not a monster expert, only expert at killing them. What are we going to do? Tarvin asks, whispering as to not create a panic. You can protect us from them, right? I do not know how many there are. This is their land. I am less familiar with the terrain than they. Even I will be at a disadvantage. We cannot panic the caravan, Tarvin says. Whatever we do, we cannot let on to the danger that everyone is in. If we keep them ignorant, they will not be able to assess the threat around them, Enkidu argues. I think they have the right to know what is out there. Not everyone can handle frightening things like you. The average person will not face danger head-on, but will instead run or freeze up. Your bravery is rare, Enkidu. You cannot compare the reactions of others to yourself. Then you take the lead, Enkidu says to Lianlin. I will remain back here and try to draw out the nasty creatures myself. We will continue with our plan to circumvent Arpa. Hopefully, we will be out of the hunting grounds quickly, and they will not attempt to pursue us further. Lianlim does not argue, riding back to the front of the procession. Enkidu tries to save what he can of the spilled grain and dry food supplies before everyone begins moving once more. Ikupi inspects the residential areas that are mostly burnt to their foundations. Only blackened stone and clay remains where there once stood homes. Each building represents a life destroyed by the Sakari invasion. He picks up some broken pottery in sadness before seeing the burnt fragments of a crib among the ashes and rubble. You never get used to it, Kinche Lupal says from behind. Ikupi continues to stare down at the last reminders of a peaceful life, now forever ruined. These people really did go through hell. Humans have faced this kind of destruction for as long as they have existed, Susuthros says, walking up to them. This is nothing new. They will recover. If what the villagers say is true, the attack they suffered was without precedent, Kinche Lupal says. It was not raiders or a rival city that attacked, but rather demons from another world. Do you actually believe that garbage? Susuthros asks. It is absurd. If such creatures existed, why would they target a backwater village like Katal to cook? Maybe there is more to this place than you think, Kinche Lupal says. The Lamaches thought so. Susuthros scoffs at this idea. I am not completely convinced of Katal to cook's worth. They are good people with a strong spirit. I, for one, trust them, Kinche Lupal says. I would like to know what it was these Sakari were after, Ikupi says. Susuthros is right. There must be something special here that caused them to target this city. I have not seen much valuable here, Kinche Lupal says, and it is not like the invaders were able to cart anything off. I was told that none were able to flee after the initial invasion began. Like other raiders, maybe they were only after slaves, Ikupi suggests. Attacking a larger city like Jericho would have resulted in failure, so they targeted a smaller population center. That is possible, Susuthros says, but it still does not explain where the raiders came from if they really were not human. It would have been helpful if they had at least kept one corpse for us to study, Ikupi says. Surely someone in this village has the medical knowledge to find weaknesses and the enemy through their anatomy. That is expecting a lot from a bunch of farmers and sheep herders, Xisuthros mutters. Why would you expect them to study an enemy that they already thought was defeated? Kinche Lepal asks. Rebuilding their city is more important than studying some dead bodies. I heard from 2 different villagers that Refugio of Levant took the bodies of several of the invaders back with him, Ikupi says. Just figures it would be that bastard, Xisuthros growls. Levant will likely be developing a way to weaponize the demons for their own military advancement. Not even Levant would stoop to that, Kinche Lepal says. There is nothing too low for that city. They will stop at nothing to become superior to Jericho. Long have our empires clashed for dominance, Xisuthros says. You are too much like Elimaches, little brother. You are naive. You think that humans are inherently good, but most are not. True human nature is vile and disgusting, and only worsens each year. Evil spread while good shrinks. That is the way of this world. The Shish raiders gathered in the wilderness to the west of Kataltakuk continue to prepare for their raid of the city. Almost 100 strong in number, the raiders are one of the few groups of Shish raiders remaining after their forces were nearly wiped out by the Mammon-led attack of Tug against them in retaliation. We need to verify that Enkidu of Clan Hyalura is not in the city before we begin this attack, the Enmerkar says. He is the only person capable of holding his own against me in battle. The Shish warriors are shocked to hear this admission. To them, their leader is like an unstoppable force of nature. The Enmerkar has never lost a battle in his entire life. To lead the Shish raiding parties, one must be the absolute strongest. If weakness is sensed, another warrior will rise up to try and claim the title of Enmerkar. Is he really that strong? A raider asks in disbelief. The Enmerkar nods. He has a reputation throughout the world among other warriors. I have to keep up on such things if I want to hold on to my position. I cannot be oblivious to up-and-comers. I know who all the strongest warriors in the world are. No one can be as powerful as you, another raider says. The things I have seen you do in battle are beyond the capabilities of normal men. This Enkidu is no normal man either. It is said that he has the blood of the Yazata within him. That cannot be true, can it? The Enmerkar shrugs. I do not know. Either way, I would rather not have him in my way if it can be avoided. I am confident that I can still kill him, but I am not sure at what cost. I could lose half of our raiding party or more to him before we ever cross blades. It's better to attack while he is away. Our numbers are already too low to be sacrificing men for no gain. And your information says that he is currently away from the village? The Enmerkar again nods. I have heard reports of him being spotted far beyond the city, in the area of Lake Arpa. One cannot be too careful, though. Not with so much at stake. We lost a lot of our strength with the sinking of our ships by Tug. With the resources we can gain from sacking small villages like this one, we will be able to rebuild our fleet and exact our revenge on Tug. The battle has weakened them, too. Had we been a part of that attack, we surely would have been able to overcome them and seize the city. The Enmerkar of the Sea Fleet was a fool to not wait until he had the support of the other tribes before he attacked Tug, and he paid for his lack of caution with not only his life, but all of his ships and men. I will not be so reckless as he. A raider dressed all in black comes forward. The man's face is concealed with a covering, so that only his cold eyes are visible. Like all the Shish, these eyes belong to a killer. I will go forth and scout the city and verify that Enkidu Hyalura is not present. You know what he looks like? The Enmerkar asks. The spy nods. I was already scouting this city as a potential target for us, before it was attacked by the Sakari. I was here during the invasion. I hid in the shadows watching it all unfold. So, you witnessed Enkidu in combat, the Amerkar says. Does he live up to the rumors? The rumors do him no justice. If he is indeed here, I advise that we do not proceed with any attack. He alone would be sufficient to wipe us all out. The spy locks eyes with the Amerkar, sending a chill down the Shish warrior's spine. Even yourself. The Amerkar wants to be angry, but he has suspected the same for a while now. Some of the feats that Enkidu has accomplished, if true, dwarf anything he is currently capable of. Go on now, and do not be seen. Report back what you discover. The spy nods, vanishing into the darkness. Enkidu and his caravan continue to press on through the wetlands of Golgotha, growing closer and closer to Lake Arpa. Tarvin continues to rest within one of the carts, still recovering from being afflicted by parasitic mosquito insect's venom. Enkidu believes that if they can reach Arpa, the threat of the lurking Tadalic will lessen greatly. The presence of a divine being seems to have the effect of scaring off most non-human creatures, with greater perception of the world and what lies beyond. Enkidu hears splashing in the water behind him and spins with his sword out, to see that the sound belongs only to several large aquatic rodents, much like nutria, splashing about. Chuckling to himself, Enkidu lowers his arm and sighs with temporary relaxation. I am too on edge, Enkidu whispers, rubbing his temples to ease his tension. I am jumping at every sound. A horrifying squeal echoes out, and Enkidu pivots to see one of the rodents sprinting away from the water, while the other is nowhere to be found. Enkidu tightens his grip on Tiavan, as the water turns viscous with a reddish tinge. Damn it, Enkidu curses under his breath. I should not have let my guard down. There really are Tadalika nearby. A deep croak bellows out, as a fat-bodied toad-like creature about 3 foot tall emerges from the swamp and moves towards Enkidu. With a single slash of his sword, Enkidu splits the creature down its center. Dozens of loud, angry croaks sound from the wilderness all around the caravan. Everyone, defend yourselves, Enkidu shouts. The Tadalic are roused, and are going to attack. The amphibious predators spring out of the water, attempting to ambush the humans. Enkidu and several Tug villagers try to fight the creatures off, but not before multiple Tadalic manage to drag their prey, still screaming, into the dark, murky waters. Lianlim stands atop a wagon, firing arrows to the eyes of many Tadalic. We need to get out of these swamps now, she shouts. This is their hunting ground. They have the advantage here. Enkidu stares at his blade in frustration. Without a demigod or similar threat to combat, Tiavan is silent. Enkidu's angelic sword is sharp and sturdy, but no better suited at combating humans or animals than any other blade. We still have many hours left to traverse before we are out of this area, Enkidu shouts. We must protect the caravan. We cannot just stay here and fight them, Lianlim argues, killing another Tadalic. They will only continue picking us off one at a time. Tarvin shouts out in surprise and terror, being dragged out of his wagon by the long, sticky tongue of a Tadalic. He claws at the ground, fumbling for anything he can to grab hold of as he is pulled towards the water. Still weak, Tarvin is unable to slow himself whatsoever, and he panics with thoughts of being consumed alive by the toad creatures. Lianlim fires 2 arrows into the water, guessing where the Tadalic's body lies, based on its eye placement and the size of the other creatures. The arrows lose penetrating power against the water's resistance, and they are unable to kill the Tadalic or prevent him from continuing to drag Tarvin to his end. Just as Tarvin's feet begin to vanish beneath the water's surface, Enkidu lunges forward to slash Tiavan down through the Tadalic's tongue, severing it. Do try to learn some self-defense, Enkidu says with frustration. I feel as though you have not picked up on anything I have shown you out here these past weeks. He is still weak from the sting, Lianlim shouts, still firing arrows at the Tadalic, trying to attack their caravan. Give him a break! Another villager screams as they are pulled into the water. and Enkidu immediately dives in after, chasing the creature and its prey. Enkidu can see nothing beneath the water's surface, but feels strong vibrations as something swims towards him. Punching the Tadalic in the gut, Enkidu can tell by the texture of its skin that it is not human, and using his other hand to thrust Tiavan into the creature's belly. Enkidu resurfaces, pulling the coughing and terrified villager out of the water with him. Lianlim and Tarvin assist Enkidu in lifting the villager from the swamp. "Thank you," they say with relief. "I thought I was gone." "We could really use some of those mages that helped to save us from the demons right now," Lianlim sighs, pulling out her last arrow to find it broken. "One lightning spell, and would be eating roasted frog all the way back home." "If we abandon the wagons and carts, we might be able to make a run for it," Tarvin says. "They do not seem like they are made for long-distance running." "You are in no condition to run yourself," Enkidu says. "And besides, we cannot leave without those supplies. Our journey will surely end in failure if we do not bring back the little provisions we have. We will not be able to make it back to Kataltakuk living off the land. Not all of us." "What would you have us do, then?" Tarvin asks, frustrated. "Have us wait to be eaten by those things?" "The two of you will continue to protect the caravan," Enkidu says. "I am going to attempt to stop this attack at its source." He charges into the swamp, hacking the arms off two attacking Tadalic before a tongue wraps around his ankles and pulls him off his feet. "Enkidu!" Tarvin shouts. "For once, do what I told you and stay put!" Enkidu screams, another tongue wrapping around his throat. To the horror of the rest of the caravan, Enkidu is pulled thrashing into the dark water. Tarvin collapses to his knees. "What was he thinking?" he whispers in horror. "What will we do now?" Lianlim grabs Tarvin by the shoulders and shakes him violently. "Did you not hear him? He gave us a job to do. Stand up and be a man. I cannot defend these people on my own." More Tadalic eyes shine from the surface of the water all around them, slowly moving closer. "There's nothing we can do," Tarvin whispers, defeated. "We're all going to be eaten. Just like Enkidu." The Inmerkar awaits the return of his scout. The Shish Raiders may be viewed by other cultures as unintelligent subhumans, but they do not attack a city without considerable reconnaissance. The Inmerkar prefers to know how many warriors are in a city and where all the entrances and exits are before initiating a raid. After a while, the black-clad Shish spy returns. "What have you seen? Is Enkidu within the city?" the Inmerkar asks. The spy shakes his head. He is not, and he is not expecting to be returned any time soon. His journey takes him all across the land, searching for assistance in restoring this city. "Good," the Inmerkar smiles. "Then this city is ours for the taking." "That is not all. Kataltakuk is not without defenders. 3 decorated warriors from the city of Jericho are inside. I advise we delay our attack until they depart from the city." The Inmerkar stares at the spy without blinking, causing the man unease. "Do you think us incapable of dealing with just 3 extra men?" "They are professional soldiers. They are unlike anyone else in the city currently." "So, we kill them, and the rest of the city will fall easily. Kataltakuk is still weakened from the demon attack. All of their best warriors and mages are dead, and Kita Hyalura is gone. We have nothing to fear." "If we wait, the soldiers will leave, and the raid will be much easier." "Did I not tell you that I am aware of all the strongest warriors in the entire world?" the Inmerkar growls. "Do you think that these 3 men have escaped my notice? The only warrior worth note in Jericho was Elamach's, and he died here at Kataltakuk. Whoever these men are, they are no cause for concern." "They are kin to Elamach's," his brothers to be exact. They do not seem to be much weaker than he was. "It does not matter," the Enmerkar shouts. "They are nothing to me." "I strongly advise you to reconsider. Our force is already so depleted. Another failure and the Shish will cease to be." The Enmerkar grabs the spy by the back of his head and smashes his face repeatedly against the ground. "If we wait, the chances of Enkidu returning increases. He has proven to be more dangerous by himself than an entire army of soldiers." He turns to his gathered warriors. "Now, we raid!" Raising their weapons, the Shish fill with excitement. He releases the spy, whose face is now a bloody ruin. "Do you understand now? I am the Enmerkar. This is my raid. You will learn your place or you will die, without ever being able to indulge in the glory of the raid." Rushing the city walls, the Shish begin raising wooden ladders in order to scale them and infiltrate Kataltakuk. Other warriors break off from the main force, searching for the broken sections of the wall to enter more easily. Several city guards are pulled into Shish blades as the first of the raiders scale the walls. "Raiders!" A guard screams out just before an axe is buried in its chest. Sisuthros and his brothers hear the guard's screams from below, and all of their instincts as warriors activate. Kinche Lupal is ready to spring into action, but his eldest brother urges him to stay out of the conflict. "This is not our fight," Sisuthros says. "The raiders came for Kataltakuk, not us." "Elamajas gave his life in defense of this city," Kinche Lupal shouts angrily. "Would you have his sacrifice be for nothing? If we do not ensure this city remains standing, Elamajas really will have given his life for no reason at all." Enkidu awakens within a cold and dark cavern. On 3 sides are stone walls, and the 4th side is black water as far as the eye can see. Around Enkidu are the Took villagers taken from the caravan. "They got you too?" a depressed villager asks. "I guess we really are going to be killed." "Not just killed," another villager speaks up. "They are going to eat us." Enkidu continues to look around, studying his surroundings. "I allowed myself to be captured. We are going to get out of here as soon as I find a way." "You allowed yourself to be captured?" the first villager asks in shock. "How did you know they would not just eat you?" "Just a hunch," Enkidu shrugs. "Seems I was correct in my guess. I thought it strange they were dragging everyone into the water still alive. A Tadalak is capable of swallowing prey at least 2 times their own size whole. There's no reason to capture live prey unless there's something deeper going on here." 3 Tadalak swim up to the prisoners. The 2 to the sides of the center creature are clad in armor of slain human warriors. The center Tadalak wears a crown of bones and a long flowing robe sewn together with moss and the remnants of various colorful garments, also pilfered from their human victims. The creatures come ashore and begin croaking loudly at the humans and poking at them with their crude spears. "We do not speak frog," Enkidu growls, shoving a spear aside, much to the dismay of the Tadalak warrior. The other warrior ushers Enkidu towards the water, where a 10-foot-long salamander surfaces. The Tadalak force Enkidu onto the back of the amphibian, and he is ferried across the underground lake towards a Tadalak village. "Enkidu!" the villagers scream in terror. "Do not leave us!" "I will be back for you," Enkidu says, staying calm. "I promise. I will return." The creatures live in huts made of stone and mud. Despite being the most primitive of civilizations that Enkidu has ever seen, he is still impressed that non-humans were able to accomplish such a feat. The salamander takes Enkidu to what appears to be an elevated stone platform, much like a stage. The Tadalak king holds up Tiavan and croaks loudly, causing the other 50 to 60 Tadalak gathered before him to echo the sound into a deafening chorus of bellows. Enkidu winces in discomfort at the sound. He glares at the Tadalek with anger as it waves his sacred sword about recklessly. Give me my sword and allow me and my people to leave. The Tadalek leader looks at the human for a long moment with his enormous eyes, before bursting out into what appears to be laughter. You cannot negotiate or threaten the Muck King, a skeletal man in dirty rags for clothing says. You exist now only for the entertainment of His Majesty. Who are you? Enkidu asks. What man speaks for the toads? A man fortunate enough to have entertained the king, and was spared the fate of his companions. Spared? So that you may live in this cave under the swamp as his interpreter? You would have been better off being devoured. At least you would still have your pride as a man. Man shrugs. Who can say when your life is at risk what you are capable of doing to stay alive? You may find that your pride is less important than survival at any costs. And you just watch as the Tadalek eat your fellow humans? There is nothing else for me to do. The Muck King begins croaking at the man angrily. The king grows impatient. Your contest is to begin immediately. My contest? Enkidu asks, confused. What are you talking about? To stay alive, you will have to participate in 4 contests, selected by the Muck King. If you are victorious and he is entertained enough, you will be allowed to live. Several Tadalek set up 2 large stone pillars, with a single stone between them. The standalone stone is connected by algae to a bulbous frog about the size of a cat. The king has decided that your first challenge shall be a test of strength. What am I to make of this madness? Enkidu asks, staring at the setup in confusion. A large Tadalek in human armor steps up to the stage dragging with him an enormous stone hammer. Bulwag will demonstrate to you how it is done. The Tadalek champion named Bulwag hefts his hammer up and brings the weapon crashing down atop the frog, causing the stone connected to it to jump into the air 4 feet 3 inches. Miraculously, the frog is flattened, but able to swell itself back out to normal size by sucking in air. The balloon frog's internal organs are all made of a rubbery substance that allows them to be extremely durable and hard to damage. Stepping on, or in this case, outright smashing the creature, is not fatal. Go on, the human interpreter says. It is your turn. Enkidu steps up to Bulwag to take the hammer. The Tadalek drops the tool to the ground and begins laughing. Grumbling, Enkidu picks up the hammer and takes a deep breath of concentration. Suddenly, Enkidu smashes the hammer atop the balloon frog, causing the stone to reach the top of the measurement stones and shake both of the pillars to the ground from the force. The Tadalek all roar with excitement, thoroughly entertained. Impressive, the interpreter says. The king was wise to keep you alive. This will increase the popularity of his games tremendously. Do you hear yourself? Enkidu growls. You're a human cheering on cannibalistic frogs. They eat humans, not each other, the man speaks up. At least not usually. Enkidu's eyes are continuously drawn to his sword, still in the grip of the Muck King. What is next? I am ready to get this foolishness over and leave this place. Even if you succeed, you will not be allowed to leave, the interpreter says. Like me, you will be forced to live here for the rest of your life, for the sole entertainment of the Tadalek. What is your name, man? Enkidu sighs. You must still have your pride as a human inside of you somewhere. The frogs could not have completely stifled your spirit. Gimetiel, the man whispers. Do you want to live with the frogs forever? Or do you want to escape this place with me and my people? Enkidu asks. He turns to face the Muck King. I do not know how much of what I say you understand, but no more games. I challenge you to combat. When I kill you, I will be taking back with me to the surface all of the humans you have imprisoned here. The Tadalek cannot understand Enkidu's words, but his body language and gestures are clear to any species. The king croaks several times to bring his warriors between him and Enkidu. Bulwog grins, picking up the large hammer and hopping several times towards the human. Enkidu grabs a stone and slides forward, evading the hammer and clubbing Bulwog against the side of his head. Bulwog stumbles, blood running down his face from his damaged skull. He is unable to think clearly and tries to shake his head free of the growing haze. Enkidu pivots, smashing the rock again against Tadalek's face. This time the blow topples the creature and Enkidu lands atop him, repeatedly bringing the stone down again and again. Enkidu stands, blood dripping from his stone. Nervously, the other Tadalek warriors stand firm between the man and the Muck King. Enkidu throws the stone and rushes the Tadalek. The stone misses, but in the confusion, Enkidu is able to get past the range of the Tadalek spears and grab one in each hand. With a scream of exertion, Enkidu snaps both spears and grabs the tips as they fall, immediately thrusting them into the throats of the two warriors. The Muck King nervously backs away in terror, holding Tiavon out in front of him. I am taking back my sword and my people, Enkidu growls. You can either oblige, or I will kill you and do as I please anyway. From behind, Gemetiel begins strangling the Muck King with his own patchwork robe. The Tadalek flails, gagging for his breath and dropping Tiavon. More frog creatures rush the stage to give aid to their king, but as Enkidu reclaims his sword, he is able to kill the Tadalek with ease. Tiavon sings with death and blood, cutting through amphibian flesh like air. Dozens of Tadalek are slain and the remainder disappear into the black water, as their king is strangled to death. Enkidu nods towards Gemetiel in approval. Come, we need to get all of their prisoners back to the surface before they bring back more warriors. I do not think that will be a problem, Gemetiel says, allowing the slain king's fat body to fall to the ground. The Tadalek are terrified of you. They will go into hiding until you are gone. They are much too cowardly a species to attack us in retaliation. Tarvin and Lianlim wait with the caravan, staring at the swamp for over an hour. They have not seen another Tadalek in all that time that Enkidu has been gone. Do you think it's over? Tarvin asks. Do you think they ate their fill of us and will not be returning? Lianlim is more cautious. This seems strange. Their attack stopped far too abruptly. I am afraid something worse may be coming. What? Tarvin says in fright. What could possibly be so terrible to scare off those creatures? Lianlim begins to smile. Him! She points to the swamp ahead of them, just as Enkidu surfaces from the water, followed by Gemetiel and the other two villagers. Took you long enough. I'm sorry, Enkidu smiles. I got distracted by the frog city beneath the swamp. They advanced far beyond what I ever thought an animal capable of. They will not soon reach that level of civilization again, Gemetiel says. By killing their king, you have scattered the remaining Tadalek in fright. They will not group together again like that for a long time out of preservation instincts. It may not be for several generations that another king arises to band the Tadalek together again. Then what are we waiting for? Enkidu asks. Let us continue home. Sisuthros and Nkupi lean over the edge of the eastern wall as Kinshe Lepal and the city guards of Kataltakuk attempt to reinforce the gates with several large trees cut down from the southern courtyard. Outside, the Shish raiders chip away at the gates with axes and swords, screaming feral with intimidation. Are these the invaders that our brother died fighting? Sisuthros asks, irritated. We were led to believe the attackers were not of this world. No, it surely was demons from another world, Tannen says. They were called the Sakari. Were it not for your brother, Lascaux, Refugio, and the soldiers of Muria and Levant, that this city would not be standing. These raiders must have heard of the attack and think Kataltakuk to be in no condition to defend ourselves. Are you? Sisuthros asks. All of the mages that protected this city are gone. What do you have left to save you? We will save ourselves, Tannen says defiantly. These raiders are just men. They bleed and die like any other. Kataltakuk will not submit to opportunistic scavengers. Where's the captain of the city guard? Kinche Lepal shouts, slashing down through the arm of a raider as they reach in through the hole of the wooden gates. He should be here organizing this defense. Baron is not a man that can be relied upon, Tannen says with disgust. No one appointed him captain of the guard. He stole the title from a dead man. Regardless, it is his duty to be here, Kinche Lepal says angrily. He thrusts his sword through the hole and into the chest of the attacking raider. He takes his own job as captain of Jericho's guard very seriously. Anyone who should be his equivalent should be doing the same as him in his opinion. He looks over to several of the city guardsmen. Go! Find your captain and bring him here. We will hold this position until he arrives. Sisuthros sighs, seeing his younger brother, taking upon himself once again to get involved. He is too much like Elamaches, he thinks. And he will share his fate if he continues like this. To keep his brother safe, Sisuthros is forced to also assist in the defense of Kataltakuk. He cannot bear to lose another brother. Do you have any archers? None professionally, but some of the villagers are decent enough, Tannen says. I want them positioned all along the walls, Sisuthros says. Behind them, I want lancers, poised ready to spear any raiders that manage to climb over the walls. The city guardsmen sent to retrieve Baron find the man near the city's rear gates. The captain of the guard is with another man who is completely covered by a flowing cloak and hood covering his face. Only his eyes are showing. The men tremble in fear, seeing that the eyes don't seem human. Where are those dogs from Jericho? Baron growls. What? One of the guards asks. He is too surprised to even be able to respond. Are you speaking of Sir Sisuthros and his brothers? Baron spits on the ground and scowls. You weak-minded fools! You have all been brainwashed by them. They're not our friends. They know that we are weak and vulnerable. They will send for more men from Jericho to conquer and enslave us. We shall be no better off than if we had been defeated by the Sakari demons. We are under attack by Shish raiders, not Jericho, the guardsman says with disdain for the captain. We were ordered to bring you back to the front line with us, so that you may take up command of our defenses. Shish raiders, Baron whispers. It was not the warriors from Jericho that were the threat? And Osria shrugs. I could sense bloodlust. I had no way of knowing we were encircled by raiders. Who is that? One of the guardsmen asks, not recognizing the man from the city. He is deeply unnerved by the man's red-tinged eyes and dark presence. That is my chief tactician, Baron says. He will assist me with strategy. Will that be a problem? It does not matter who they are, so long as protecting Kataltakuk is their main focus, the other guardsman says. Baron looks to Anazria, awaiting his response. Of course, Anazria says with a smile. I want nothing more than to protect this city. They return to the front lines where the wooden main gates are at their limit. Sisuthros and Akupi have successfully managed to hold the wall by keeping archers trained on any Shish attempting to enter the city via ladder and rope. The gates finally give and the Shish flood into Kataltakuk, like water rushing in from a burst dam. The city guards fight valiantly, now experienced in combat after surviving against the Sakari. The Shish are surprised at how well the villagers are able to fight back. Egi Nestra, Nasria whispers, holding a finger to his lips and blowing a massive fireball forward that sweeps over many Shish, incinerating them in a brilliant inferno of magical flame. The Enmerkar enters the city, slashing down through 2 guardsmen that attempt to engage him. Baron crosses swords with the raider, managing to overpower the man and cut him down the center. Unable to celebrate, he is struck by a powerful blow from behind that propels him into a wall. Baron hits his head hard, slumping to the ground unconscious. The Enmerkar lowers his fist, grinning. "Are you the best this city has to offer? I could kill you unarmed." He is by far the strongest of them, Inazria thinks. Unless he displays some special ability that is worth taking, I need to avoid fighting him directly and drawing attention to myself. The warriors from Jericho may be too much for me to handle if they fight me together. It would be best to hang back and allow the humans to kill this man. "You!" the Enmerkar growls, pointing at Inazria. "I can tell you are strong. Fight me!" "I do not think that is a good idea," Inazria says. The Enmerkar ignores him, running forward and cutting several villagers down that are in his path. Inazria drops into a crouch and places his palms flat on the street, raising a stone barrier between them. The man punches through the stone, forcing Inazria to leap back in evasion. Bits of rock fly outwards like shrapnel in all directions. The Enmerkar manages to grab Inazria's cloak and swing him around into a clothesline across the throat. The Sakari throws its weight back in order to wrap the cloak around the man's arm and pull it downwards, quickly allowing his feet to touch the street, before thrusting into a front flip and kicking the Enmerkar in the back of the head. Inazria lands in a crouch, skidding along the ground several feet from his momentum as the Enmerkar untangles himself from the Sakari's cloak. I am now exposed, Inazria thinks. I have no choice but to withdraw from this fight. The Enmerkar turns, studying his opponent carefully. "You are not human." He begins to smile and draw his sword. "What are you? Are you one of the creatures that attacked this city before us?" "You will have to be left questioning that, I am afraid," Inazria says. "I do not have allies among the humans, and now that I am no longer concealed, I cannot continue this battle." "I do not care about that, so long as you are strong," the Enmerkar says. "Human or not, you will fight me." "I cannot. I must retreat now for my own future survival." With that, he casts a spell to conceal himself in smoke, allowing him to escape without being pursued. "Cowards!" the Enmerkar screams. "This city is full of nothing but weaklings and cowards!" A villager tries to spear the Enmerkar from behind, but he hears his approach and turns to catch the spear in his hand, before slashing his sword down through the man's center. The villager is split in half, and the Enmerkar roars loudly in anger and adrenaline. "Kill them all! Do not take any prisoners! Find the city's valuables and destroy everything else!" "The people of Katatakuk are our city's most valuable treasure," Tannen says. "People are not treasure," the Enmerkar growls. "They are resources to be consumed, goods to be bought and sold. Your devotion to them is weakness." Several villagers block Tannen from the Enmerkar. Elder Tannen means everything he says. While we work hard to rebuild the city, he spends every day making sure that we are fed and taken care of. No one cares more about Katatakuk than he does. "He is the heart of Katatakuk," another villager says, "and we will fight to protect our heart." The Enmerkar raises his sword. "Then I will tear all of you down and cut out that heart." A barrage of arrows rains down on him from above, causing the Enmerkar to shield himself with his free arm. "Get up there and kill those archers," he orders his warriors, as 2 arrows are now stuck through his forearm. Multiple raiders charge at the walls, dashing up the stairs and using any ladders available. The archers attempt to hold them back, but the Shish are more skilled in combat and able to break through their defenses. Sisuthros and Akupi are soon all who remain on the walls, standing against dozens of Shish warriors alone. The Jericho warriors abandon the walls and escape to the street to take up new positions against the enemy. Kinche Lupal rushes into battle, slashing his sword down through the wooden spears of the nearest soldiers. The spears splinter into tiny shards as the men reel back in surprise. Kinche Lupal brings his sword diagonally from hip to shoulder across one of the raiders and pivots with a spin to slash the second down his center. Another raider with an axe comes at Kinche Lupal from behind, but he is felled by a knife thrown into his back. Ikupi grins, flipping a second knife in his hand and catching it by the tip. "Watch your back, little brother," he turns, flinging the knife into the forehead of a raider as he runs at them. Sisuthros cuts down multiple raiders with irritation, walking towards the Enmerkar. "You," he shouts, holding his sword out towards the man. "Face me one-on-one so I can end this waste of time." "Waste of time?" the Enmerkar growls. "We are going to strip this city bare. Every resource will be taken, every man slain, and every woman and child taken as slaves to be sold." "I know how a raid works," Sisuthros growls in irritation. He stabs another raider in the chest and kicks him to pull his sword free, using the moment to spin around into a downward slice that nearly cleaves another raider in two. "It is a waste of time because every one of you is going to die, and it will all be for nothing." Two more Shish raiders run at Sisuthros, but he drops low to slash horizontally and spill out their insides. The Enmerkar grows impatient, calling for one of the raiders to bring him his special sword. The Enmerkar tosses his weapon aside and puts his foot on the man's shoulder to push him back and draw the massive two-handed sword. The blade and handle altogether is easily 5 feet in length. The Enmerkar hefts the sword up with little effort and grins. "Back in Jericho you may be important, but I have been a killer my entire life. At birth I killed my mother. When I was only 10 I challenged my father for his title and slew him. Entire cities have fallen before me. Everywhere I go I leave nothing but ash," the Enmerkar boasts. Sisuthros holds his sword up to his lips and whispers, "Dinko Senka." The blade begins to glow brightly. "It seems as though you are long overdue to be put down. Rabid animals should not be allowed to roam free." The Enmerkar chuckles. "Magic, huh? Afraid to face me with your own strength?" Sisuthros shrugs. "Whatever comforts you in the grave." Charging with a loud roar, the Enmerkar runs at Sisuthros with his sword raised high. As the barbarian brings his sword down, Sisuthros steps forward and impossibly moves past the Enmerkar. The barbarian begins to drool blood, dropping his weapon. He looks down in disbelief to see that he has nearly been cut in two at the waist. "I lost?" the Enmerkar whispers, his face turning pale. He stands in a puddle of blood that only continues to grow. "Just like that? I thought our duel would be epic. I thought my death would be more grand." Sisuthros shakes his head, sheathing his sword. "No, you are completely unimportant. There will be no record of you or your conquests. No one will mourn or avenge you. You will not be carried off in glory for a magnificent funeral. Your body will be dragged outside the gates and left to feed the jackals and crows." The Enmerkar collapses dead, causing the other raiders to lose heart and begin retreating back towards the gates. Ikupi shuts the gates and stands in front of them with several city guardsmen. "Did we not tell you that there would be no retreat? No one will escape just to bring more of your people against here or Jericho in retaliation. We will wipe you off the face of the earth today." The Shish are pinched between Ikupi in the front and his brothers from behind. The raiders fight furiously, trying to take as many men as they can with them. Several guards fall, but in the end all of the Shish are killed. "Like your valiant brother before you, you have saved the city," Tannen says. Kataltakuk will forever be indebted to your noble family. Susuthros nods. I pray that we never have to be called upon to this city for the favors that it owes us. Kinche Lepal smiles, seeing that the city of Kataltakuk has won over his stubborn older brother. I do not think you will have to worry about the Shish any longer. After this defeat, the remaining warlords will gather together in order to strategize. We will lead the full might of Jericho against them and erase the rest of their blight. Never again will the free cities of this world have to fear the Shish or their raids. In the memory of all the cities and lives the Shish have destroyed, we thank you, Tannen says. You truly are brave and honorable knights. Your city's champion. Do you think he will return? Susuthros asks. Tannen nods. I have not a doubt in my mind. Enkidu's loyalty to Kataltakuk is matched by no other man or woman. Even if his intestines are spilled forth and his legs severed, Enkidu will claw his way back here before allowing himself to die. He is too stubborn and focused upon his goal of restoring the city to fail to return to us. Susuthros finds this answer satisfactory. I very much would like to meet this man in the future. I believe that we could teach each other a few things. Tannen smiles. I am sure that he would enjoy that. Thank you again for everything that you have done. Kinche Lepal leans in close to whisper to Tannen. Watch your captain carefully. He is hiding something. Both men glance quickly at Baron, who stands against the wall, ignored and irritated. I don't know what, but all of my instincts tell me that he is up to no good. That man is one I will never trust, but I do appreciate your warning, Tannen says. Kinche Lepal nods. Just do not present your back to one such as him. They will not hesitate to plunge a knife into it. The brothers of Elamaches refill their water skins and rest for a bit, before departing back for Jericho. Once there, the knights will rally their forces to ride out through the Akshish Mountains, in a final effort to eliminate the Shish tribes of the north. With their losses to the Tug and Kataltakuk, the Shish are already greatly weakened. The Tug routed their ships and decimated their naval capabilities. With no means to flee, the Shish will be cornered by Jericho, and that will be the end for them. The superior military power and numbers of Jericho will ensure that there are no survivors. What do you think? Kinche Lepal asks his brothers as they ride out from Kataltakuk towards Jericho by going northwest around the Ayota Desert and through the western pass of the Akshish. Did Elamaches make the right decision, or was it simply a waste of a talented life? I will always be biased towards our brother, Susuthros says. I would sacrifice the whole city of Kataltakuk to bring him back. He pauses. That said, they seem to be a good people, and I can see how they might have endeared themselves to Elamaches' soft heart. He was never able to watch others suffer. Knowing the plight of Kataltakuk, there never was any way of holding him back. Our brother was destined to die fighting for what he believed in. We should be grateful that the city our brother died for was able to survive due to his sacrifice, Kinche Lepal says. I believe that would have made him happy. We have done our part in protecting that legacy, Susuthros says. If Kataltakuk flourishes, so too will the memory of our brother. I am not entirely convinced that Kataltakuk is out of danger, Akupi says. That man claiming to be captain of the guard. Something about him is unsettling. Baron, Kinche Lepal says. I was told that he gave himself that position. It was never bestowed upon him. I did not like him either, but I've met many men like him over the years, Susuthros says. He chose a position hoping it would give him power and authority, rather than doing it to protect his fellow citizens. It's not just that, Kinche Lepal says with apprehension. I could tell that he was hiding something. I think he is dangerous. I told Tannen about my suspicions before we left. Then all is handled, Susuthros says dismissively. Tannen will rein in the captain's ambitions, and all will be well. And if he is unable, Kinche Lepal asks, what if Baron makes a coup to destroy Kataltakuk? The city will not be able to endure with him at the lead. Kataltakuk is behind us and no longer our concern, Susuthros says, with all the authority of being the eldest sibling. Look forward to Jericho and our next campaign against the Shish. Kinche Lepal nods reluctantly. I suppose you are right. Do not be discouraged, Susuthros says. Wiping out the last of the Shish is a noble cause worthy of our attention. The brothers continue on their journey home, leaving Kataltakuk and its troubles in the past. None of them aware that they will never again see this city. Going around the flooded region of Arpa, Enkidu's caravan leaves the marshes of Golgotha behind without any further run-ins with the Tadalak. While he knew of the existence of the man-sized amphibians and their carnivorous nature, he never expected the Tadalak to have managed to form their own quasi-society in the underground caverns beneath Lake Arpa and its surrounding swampland. Killing their king and the best warriors, Enkidu does not figure that the Tadalak will be more than occasional annoyances to travelers throughout the region for generations. Now, as they reach the final leg of their journey, Enkidu wonders what is next for the people of Kataltakuk and himself. Instead of bringing back extra food and supplies for our city survivors, we managed to pick up additional refugees, Enkidu says with a loud sigh. I fear our soft hearts have put Kataltakuk in a worse position than before. We have additional mouths to feed and not enough houses still standing to use for the villagers we already had. It was the right thing to do, Lanlam says, trying to validate their choice. The right thing to do is not always the easiest. We still have the sacred water, and we are headed now to collect the priestesses of Fi from Samsara. You said it yourself that the combination of those two will be enough to boost the yields of our food crops for this season, Tarvin says. Yes, but what after? Enkidu asks, discouraged. We have only managed to stop the bleeding, but the wound persists. Over a month journeying to all of the various cities and villagers of our region, and we still do not have a clear path to restoring Kataltakuk. With the extra manpower from the people of Tug, we can harvest the woodlands for building supplies and construct many more homes, Tarvin says. One of the Tug refugees overhears their conversation and speaks up. If you continue to refer to us as the people of Tug, there will always be a division between our people. The only way for us to be accepted into your city is to stop drawing attention to us as outsiders. Enkidu finds these words very wise. What is your name? Ilushbani, the man replies. What is your profession, Ilushbani? I am a mason by trade. I mold and bake clay bricks for construction projects. Tarvin looks at Enkidu, smiling as if to say, I told you so. I never even thought to ask everyone what their jobs were, Lanlam whispers. We could have other skilled tradesmen and not even know it. After asking everyone in the caravan their professions, it is learned along the way that along with Ilushbani the mason, they have with them Maskaliam and Azida the teachers, Ipkuaya the fisherman, Shema the shipbuilder, Waladug the blacksmith, Karab and Puzish the sheep herders, Sabiam Kur the hunter, and Mataki the architect. Most of the other villagers have jobs that Enkidu does not think will be immediately useful in the reconstruction of Kataltakuk, like artisans, sculptors, and historians. One exception is Ericitum, the Vigilius. What is a Vigilius? Enkidu asks. I have never heard of that job before. I was appointed as a lower magistrate of the city law by the priests of Mammon after they took over and deposed Tug's prior government, Before that, I served as an abbessary. A lawman? Enkidu asks, aware that instead of city guards who act as both military defense and enforcers of civil laws, some cities separate the two into different agencies to better handle larger workloads. We lost many of our city guard, including our captain. Your experience in the field could greatly assist us in selecting and training replacements. Aristotem nods courteously. Any way that I can help. Baron will not like that one bit, Tarvin says. Replacing him with someone capable is necessary. That man is captain of the guard in title only. Getting more experience into the office can only do our city good, Enkidu says. I do not think Baron is the kind of man to give up his power without a fight, Tarvin replies. That power was never his to begin with. He has no say in who the city chooses to select as its chief defender, Enkidu says. Why do you not pursue the office, then, yourself? Aristotem asks. You seem best suited to officially defend the city as captain of the guard. Proven to everyone how brave and selfless you are. A city could not want a better defender. I have no interest in self-glorifying pursuits, Enkidu says. That has never been my motivation in protecting Kataltakuk. All the more reason that you are the best selection, Tarvin says. Baron desires the title too much. It should go to someone who does not want it, but still does the job for the right reasons. As a warrior priest, I cannot take any other official employment. My connection to God in our city must remain without bias. The caravan continues their journey back home to Kataltakuk. Ahead of them lie many perils. The hungry lions hunting in the Valley of Dre and the thick forest between the Mesha River and Kataltakuk that are so dense that they are nearly unnavigable. Along the way, they will collect the priestesses of Fi from the village of Samsara, then return home to Kataltakuk. Enkidu is unsure of the reception he will receive. Nowhere near what they need to fully restore the city, the aid of the maidens is only a patch keeping the flood at bay. He was to collect supplies for his desperate city, but instead he will be returning with even more mouths to feed. He knows in his heart that Lianlin was not wrong and that they made the correct decision. He tried to deny the truth and harden his heart to the plight of Tug's survivors, but in the end he knows that saving them is what the Creator would have wanted of him. The added supplies of Tug will not be enough to even get the refugees of that city through the winter, let alone add to Kataltakuk's depleted stores. Enkidu knows that something more drastic must be done soon to save Kataltakuk. This will not be the end. Another journey will have to be undertaken. Perhaps in seeing his failure, the elders of Kataltakuk will send someone else in his stead. Enkidu is tired of the burden. He is a warrior and a priest. He does not wish to be anyone's savior. Convincing the young Tarvin and Lianlim of that would prove difficult. After saving them both from Tug, the teens have placed Enkidu upon a very high pedestal of heroism. They both respect and admire the man. It is only a matter of time, but Enkidu knows that he will lose that respect and fall from his high place. God will remind him of his humility. God will remind him of his own sins. After 2 more days of traveling, the caravan reaches the small city of Samsara, tucked away in the heavily forested wilderness around the Mesha River. As the group approaches the village, vibrant greenery is immediately visible. Do not touch anything without permission, Enkidu warns. The people of this city hold all life sacred and holy. Even plant and animal life is consumed with veneration and respect. A delegation of Samsaran villagers is sent to greet Enkidu's caravan. There are many more of you than when you last visited, the city elder named Cho says with a warm smile. It is good to see you in good health and multiplying. We were able to turn some bad circumstances into good fortune, Enkidu says. But it was not without great danger and sacrifice. We are fortunate to be alive. Cho sighs. worried about his priestesses. The people of Samsara are close like family, and the elder thinks of all the citizens like they are his own blood. I suppose I cannot go back on my word now. You're here to collect the priestesses, right? Enkidu nods. I understand your apprehension, but I swear on my life that no harm will befall your people while in my care, Enkidu promises. As you can see from the refugees taken in from the fallen city of Tug, Kataltakuk embraces all people as her own brethren. Your family will be our family within our walls. Cho nods in acceptance. I have no reason to doubt you, Enkidu of Clan Hyalura. Your father was a staunch ally of Samsara, and an honorable man. I can see that you have grown up to be just like him. My father? Enkidu asks, surprised. You knew him? Like you, Sam was a dedicated warrior priest of your city's faith. He traveled the region, destroying evil wherever it was found. Your father and you came to a similar judgment upon visiting Samsara the first time. While it is not your faith, our worship of the three goddesses is peaceful and contains no practices that could be seen as harmful or threatening to Kataltakuk. Clan Hyalura has shown us tolerance, and in this world that kindness goes a long way. Enkidu is overwhelmed by his emotions and struggles to reply. With Fausto gone, Tannen is really the only other person who speaks about his father. Enkidu was still just a child when Sam died, and he can mostly only remember his appearance and voice. Many of the man's other details and the events of his life remain a mystery to Enkidu. Thank you for your kind words, Enkidu says, unable to muster anything else. Tarvin and Lianlin whisper back and forth to each other, having never seen Enkidu so emotionally exposed before. I'm beginning to see that he has a soft side after all, Lianlin says. I always thought Enkidu to be cold and unapproachable. But he saved the people of Tug 2 times now, and shows tolerance, and even friendship towards the Samsaran, even though they are of another faith. He has a lot of external armor, but Enkidu truly is a good man, Tarvin says. I am grateful to my father to have been given the opportunity to learn from Enkidu during this long journey. Lanlim eyes Tarvin with a smile. It sounds as if you are finally maturing some. I never thought that would happen. What are you implying? Tarvin asks, slightly insulted, but in a joking way. I have always been a wise, mature young man. We have known each other since we were children, Lanlim says. You cannot fool me. You were always the most immature boy our age in the whole of Kataltakuk. Honestly. You kind of got on my nerves most of the time. Thanks, Tarvin sighs. I needed that confidence boost. Cho calls over 3 young women in floral-made dresses and adorned with flower wreaths on their heads. They are all priestesses of the goddess Fi. Please take good care of them. They may belong to the goddesses, but they are like daughters to me, Cho says. Enkidu nods. I do not go back on my word. I vow to keep them safe, even if it costs me my own life. Cho receives a kiss on the forehead from each of the girls as they walk past him. He begins to sob, fearing that he will never see any of them again. The elder trusts Enkidu, but the world is a very dangerous place, with many perils out of any man's control. I am Sameka, the first girl about Lianlim and Tarvin's age says, introducing herself. I know every plant, both edible and medicinal in our land. With my help, the hardiest and best yielding crops will be planted. Enkidu calls Yarlagab over. Please teach her as much as you can about this subject. She already has more working knowledge of herbs and apothecary than anyone I can think of in our city. I am Shakanesa, the second priestess, slightly younger at about 14, introduces herself next. I am blessed with a magical gift to be able to make any plant grow healthy and strong, even those wilted and dying. Plant healing magic, Enkidu whispers in surprise. We view their abilities more as gifts from the goddesses, not magic, Cho says. Only those chosen by the goddesses receive their powers. Regardless of the source, their gifts will be much appreciated in our reconstruction efforts, Enkidu replies. And I am Nuhem, the final priestess introduces herself. She's the eldest of the three at about 25. Can all of you use plant magic? Enkidu asks. Nuhemiu nods. We all have different gifts from the goddesses, but yes, we can all utilize magic in some form or another. I can cast protections over your crops to keep them safe from pests and environmental hazards. Tarvin looks to Enkidu in surprise. Did you know they could use magic from the start? I had my suspicions. Did you think that I would go to such trouble to get these women to simply pray over our fields? Based on the growth and intensity of the foliage in this area, I figured they must have some knowledge of green magic. So, we really do have a chance at survival now, Tarvin whispers in disbelief. I'm sorry that I ever doubted you. Our troubles are far from over, Enkidu says. Even with enhanced yields and durability, the crops alone will not be enough to save Kental-Takuk from a complete ruin. We require much reconstruction and labor to set things right. Many citizens are still without permanent shelter, and all of the extra citizens we'll be bringing in with us will also need homes. If this problem is not corrected quickly, exposure to the weather will lead to them becoming ill and dying. We have much left to do before Kental-Takuk is truly saved. Welcoming the priestesses into their caravan, Enkidu and the others set off once more for Kental-Takuk. The final leg of their journey is the least dangerous, having already passed the perilous marshes and wetlands around Lake Arpa. While they have been off on their own quest, little do they know that Kental-Takuk itself has been dealing with its own problems. Having endured a second attempted invasion, the city now deals with the aftermath of losing even more of its populace to senseless killing. In addition to this, captain of the city guard Baron's dark alliance with the surviving Sakari and Nasria continues in the shadows. Even after surviving so much, the city remains in great danger so long as the Sakari remains alive within its midst.